it is no surprise that Batman is truly the most iconic character of all time. I mean, he's battled with a multitude of different villains, some of which are his most iconic, both live action and just comically, and some that are considered underrated and are very underutilized. Well, in today's video, I kind of want to give you my top 5 Batman villains of all time. So who is Batman's greatest rogue? That I'm going to give you in this video. Now, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and drop a like on the video. That will help me a lot, and I greatly appreciate you for being here. Anyways, let's get into it. So at number 5, I have Scarecrow. Now, Scarecrow was never really a villain I was familiar with, aside from the Christopher Nolan trilogy and from his appearance in Arkham Knight as the main villain. Yes, I also know he's also in Arkham Asylum, but I just haven't played it yet. Anyways, but after reading The Long Halloween and Dark Victory, it's low-key kind of hard to justify him not being top 5. I mean, think about it. He has the ability to instill fear into others and use people's fears as sort of like a manipulation tactic. Also, another thing to mention is his iconic fear toxin, which, to put into simpler terms, is a weaponized hallucinogen that apparently is so powerful it can cover an entire city. Of course, I'm referencing both Batman Begins and Arkham Knight. So in Batman Begins, the fear toxin was capable of vaporizing an enemy's water supply. And in Arkham Knight, it's pretty much the same thing, except the fear toxin also operated as a military vehicle or a dispersal unit, and it created this giant cloud that is referred to as the cloudburst. So to the fullest extent, this stuff is pretty damn powerful, right? It's pretty obvious. And it's even proven to be effective against people like Superman. So I'd argue Scarecrow's versatility and his immense psychological intelligence would easily put him at the 5 spot. All right, so moving on. So at number 4, I have the Riddler. Now, contrary to popular belief, I think the Riddler is probably one of Batman's most complex and his most intelligent foes. He's an absolute powerhouse when it comes to challenging Batman, not only on his mental strength but his psychological strength as well. He's known for creating these like sort of unique puzzles and death traps that make his enemies learn to think on their toes, right? And as opposed to Batman being labeled the world's greatest detective, Riddler will always test that, and he will always run his patience thin. But that's to insinuate that he remains a worthy foe, that he is destined to be Batman's best challenger, or whatever terminology is used. Something interesting to point out is his role in Matt Reeves' The Batman film. He gave off this kind of like Zodiac killer vibe, which in my opinion, I think it's like so fitting for this universe because it goes more in depth with the psychological side of Batman. So the only downside to the Riddler is the amount of effort and time I've had to commit to doing every single Riddler challenge in Arkham Knight. Like, that was truly exhausting. So he loses 1 cool point for that, but aside from that, he's still one of my favorite villains, and he's earned the 4 spot. Okay, moving on. Now, number 3, this is an interesting one, but I chose Mr. Freeze. Now, as fascinating as he is, it's hard to really decipher him being a supervillain. Like, yeah, he does very supervillain things, but his ideology behind why he does those things is sort of linked to his personal background. So to sum things up, Victor Freeze, or Mr. Freeze as we call him, is a very skilled scientist, and he's an inventor that specializes in cryogenics, meaning like very cold things. I don't know how to explain it. Y'all help me out in the comments. Anyways, he falls in love with this woman named Nora, right? Who he's known since boarding school. Now, they get married, and eventually Nora suffers a terminal illness. And so, as tough as this is for him, he discovers that the only way of saving her is by cryogenically preserving her, which basically means that he just freezes her for a long time. He give her the Captain America treatment, and upon doing that, he suffers a lab accident, right, that splashed these chemicals on him and pretty much just made him extremely cold. Now, he basically causes harm to others because of the harm that was caused to his wife, in which he somewhat thinks he put her through. I'm not too familiar. I'm sorry. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. So in hindsight, he has those traditional villain elements to him. But unlike characters like Scarecrow or the Riddler, I think Freeze has some redeeming qualities to him. Like, he respects Batman very much. So I think it's a matter of a year's worth of trauma that he can't let go of. But nevertheless, I still regard him as one of the best because he is extremely powerful and he has some really cool technology. Okay, and there's a lot more nuance of the character that I think and I hope will be explored in the next Batman film. But anyways, Mr. Freeze is at number 3. So moving on. So at number 2, this might be my favorite pick, and it might be a controversial take, but hear me out, okay? So at number 2, I have Bane. Now, personally, Bane is top 5 DC villains all time, but hey, that's my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Don't at me on that. But aside from that, Bane is often a character that I highly ostracized when I was younger. I never really had an interest in him. I don't know why. But that was until Arkham Origins came out, and literally my entire perception on Bane like changed drastically. Additionally, I was also a pretty big fan of Tom Hardy's portrayal of the character. Even though he wasn't like the most comic accurate Bane, he had a lot of his characteristics. As far as his ideologies, I mean, not to mention the look, it gave off this sinister, like very intimidating vibe to him, like just like Bane in the comics. You know, he's very scary, very intimidating, but he wears this mask that kind of like shields his, I guess, expressions away from people. So people will, you know, like people are led to believe, you know, Bane is very unpredictable, right? I feel like that stems a lot from his unpredictability. And so the only issue I really had with Tom Hardy's Bane was that his aesthetic, pretty much. You know, I understand, you know, Christopher Nolan's vision of these characters, I can greatly respect, right? Because I feel like when it came to realistically inserting Batman, all of his mythos into the real world, he got it somewhat down pat. I guess it's pretty arguable because, you know, Matt Reeves definitely pushed the boundaries of like how realistic Batman can turn out. But when it came to Bane, I just wish there was a little bit more nuance as far as like his agenda. The personification of Batman, Bane views as pretty much a slap in the face because he feels Batman is a threat, or as the Joker said best,
an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Bane strikes me as really one of the best because aside from him being the best physical counterpart to Batman, I believe he is probably one of the most underrated, intelligent foes in his rogues gallery, which is something I've always underestimated about him. He studied Batman to a T pretty much, to not only battle him with strength, but he also with quick wits and with strategy. You know, his ability to think strategically allows him to hit Batman where it hurts. So without a doubt, Bane is easily number 2 on my list, and he would be number 1 if it was not for this next person. Number 1 is none other than the Prince of Crime himself, Joker. Now, no introduction is really needed for this guy. He is undoubtedly one of my favorite, if not he is my favorite villain in Batman's rogues gallery. He is the literal textbook definition of a supervillain, and honestly the most complex villain of Batman's rogues gallery. I mean a lot, I'm sorry. He doesn't have super strength, right? Or heat vision, or he doesn't have the ability to vaporize an entire city. No, like he's just a normal guy, well, a human per se, that just so happens to be skilled with guns or swords or bombs or any type of projectiles. And when you take a mentally deranged lunatic like Joker and you give him access to extensive amounts of weaponry and firepower, then 9 times out of 10 he is bound to cause chaos and destruction wherever he goes, right? But in the grand scheme of things, Joker serves as an equal counterpart to Batman. You know, they both want to bend the law, right? But each having a certain level of responsibility. Not to mention Joker causes chaos while Batman tries to prevent it. So all in all, he's a perfectly balanced villain. I feel as if everything else is self-explanatory. You know, Heath Ledger really set the bar high for a somewhat, people would argue, perfect Joker adaptation. So of course, Joker takes the number 1 spot with ease. But yeah, I think that's it. I think this is a pretty fair list. But hey, as always, y'all can argue with that in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you stuck around to the end of this video, I really appreciate you for being here. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Be sure to smile because it never hurts to do so, and I'll see y'all in the next. Take care, everyone.